Why can't you excavate in little areas? And that's more of a design question, of things that you would do in a design stage rather than in the stage that we're in right now. Would we implement it that way? It's possible. Would it decrease the smell? Who knows? I don't really know. The main thing is though is when we talk about containment, it's because you want to prevent any type of exposure. You don't have any exposure, you don't have any risk. Once you start digging into it, regardless if it's a large area or it's a little area, you're still exposing the material there. So you're talking about smell, where it smells much, you guys probably know more than I will, but the bottom line is you're still digging into the material. But if you're saying, can you do it in little sections? Probably, but that's more of a design question.
Yeah, and just before we go on to the next, I just wanted to share, number one, I think that if we have the intention that just because the docks have not been used, I don't believe that should not be a reason for us to abandon that approach. I can understand from the perspective of moving it to the water transportation method and then shifting it to another road method and not having, and then the added labor, adding another transportation medium, I can understand that. But I think that we should think along the lines of, okay, what is the best way to reduce the impact on the neighborhood? What is the most, looking at all ways, like what is the most fastest way to get it out of here, most economical, and also, ultimately it should reach its destination. And so I was just suggesting that, but I don't think that we should say, well, the docks are not being used. I think that if we determine that there is a way somehow for us to take that waste from a barge and be able to transfer it, I think that we can engineer a system. If we engineer a container that can be sent to moon, I think we can engineer a system whereby which we can take a shipping container and have multiple levels of containment within. That waste is dumped in there. It's a reusable container, put it on a barge, and that barge could be using on a crane, moved it onto a road-based, land-based transport system. I think the docks could be rehabilitated. There could be some, I row past the Cape Horn pretty much every week, that Navy ship that transports large tanks and vehicles. So we have the ingenuity and the capability. So I just want to caution that we should, just because it's not being used, we shouldn't use that. And dredging can be done, so I just want
You're right, dredging can be done, but remember, you're going to put an added cost to our $330 million cost. Now, if you go to Congress and say, hey, we need more than $330 million, and then they ask us, well, geez, why can't you just do trucking? Why can't you just do this? Now, remember, the $330 million cost is coming from all of us. It's coming from the taxpayers. So they're going to say, geez, did you really look at your cost estimation? Is that really the best thing? Now, if you're going to dredge and it's going to be a channel where all ships are using it, absolutely, that makes sense. It's being used by more than just one project. In this particular case, it wouldn't be. So I really don't think, even just for funding, I don't think the government would be able to get the funding for it.
Okay. Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, I would like to also concur that to excavate and remove it, being a resident here in the Bayview, is something that I would feel would be the best result. And as far as, I would hate to think that we would use the cost factor of not removing it all.
That's right.
To use that as a criteria to not have this work done. I worked on a ship on the sewer plant when they was building it, and that was over a 4-year project at the sewage plant. So it's something now that if we don't take care of, will impact the community much more than what the community has already been impacted. And by having a feasibility study to take a little bit and cover it and all that, why not just take it out? And whatever it is that you might think might be adverse against the community is dealing with it anyway. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. James?